Hi all, it's Scott Norris here from the VRealize Me blog. Now I'm just adding a video to my post today to help get across, I guess, the how simple using a key value store and with VMware's vRealize automation and application services is to use and what can be achieved. There's not a day that goes by over the last couple of months where there hasn't been a new idea and a new way to use it, and it's really exciting, and it's helping a lot of customers get a lot more value out of their products, allowing a lot more integration and allowing a lot more uh, less input from the end users, so there's less mistakes and data stored in a consistent manner. So here we have just the vRealize application services page. I'll show today the NanoTrader. So the standard NanoTrader app is an out-of-the-box content that just gives a demo of what application services can do. I won't go into it too much, what how it all fits together, but I'll just show like what I've changed. So this is your standard NanoTrader app that comes out of the box. So what we've done here is juiced it up a bit, and it now has some KVS. In this case, we're using ECTD, which is a Core OS product, and as well as a PAS ID, just to show on a very small scale how cool this stuff can be. So we'll just take a look at this now. Here you can see the new service. So I've got an F5 load balancer here instead of the standard Apache. Then we've got the PAS ID service. Now the PAS ID service here just takes in one input, which is the PAS ID, and in this case, just for a little bit of content, I have it generating a load balancer name, which it then feeds into the F5 external service that we have here. Next we have the key value store. So this is the host one. So this allows all the data from the host to be populated in the right areas. So what we might do is look, the key value store creates the parent structure in the key value store. So what I have here is a nice web browser for ECTD that a colleague of mine has put together, and actually it's a client put together on site, just to make the information more readable if we wanted to browse through and make sure everything's correct. So in here we can see how we've got the PAS ID. So the PAS ID service creates this initial level here. So if we look at this AST one, it'll create this parent folder. Then what happens is this host level service populates that with all the host details. Now this can be anything. Here, as you can see, we're only putting in the node type. So here's SQL locator, the platform ID, which is getting from the PAS ID, so it knows where to put it, the IP address, domain, host name, and the root secret ID is something that could be pulled back in case you need to run root level functions on a day 2 action or something similar. But you could put anything in here: CPU, RAM, memory, application versions, the whole works. But I've just got this here for now for demo purposes, and this creates under this nodes, under this heading here. So these are all the nodes here and the data that it's populated. So the domain, the host, IP address, and message. So that would be the RabbitMQ box. And the root ID is empty because I haven't actually populated that. So that'll be the same, consistent for every single one. Then we go to look at this is the secret server service. So this is just a generic service I have that allows secret server to first generate the password and then to store the password. And if we go to the secret server site, we'll see there's my AST one, and we can see that this is for the SQL file, the username's NanoTrader, the password's there. We can have a nice little look, there it is. And then we've got the, obviously it's been created by VCO. and invoked by myself. So we go back to here. That just provides the password. I have a lot of clients that use this quite heavily, especially in these deployments where no deployment will ever be the same. And because we can store the ID and then grab that at a later date in a day two action, the end users never actually need to know them if all the tasks you're giving them is through VRA under day two actions or other things. So then we move on to this external service here. So this is just for generic, general data, anything else that we want put in. I sort of whipped it together just to be able to put information here to show for demo purposes. But see, we're creating the folder load balancer password. This in itself is sort of a key value store because it's got then the name, which is IP address, fully qualified owner, etc. And then we got the value, and you can see we're linking all the values there. So if we go back into the ECTD browser, we can then see those manifested here as database, load balancer, passwords. Deployment is what the PAS ID creates. So while I've only got the load balancer being created, you could use anything. You could create all the building blocks for all the would-be inputs that you would have. So, you can have your release, your application version, your application instance, your environment, your project, and then have everything in a consistent manner. And all these would be stored under here, under this deployment tag in this instance, if that was the case. So what we'll do is we'll kick one of these off. Because haven't published through VCAC, I'll have to enter a few bits of data here. We'll deploy that. So the data I'll need to input is the PAS ID. So let's make a prod one, and the F5. Let's just make sure we're not using those. Okay. Generally, I'd have IPAM filling in the F5, so that would never have to be touched. And the only entry I would generally like to put in is that PAS ID, and everything else is derived from that. Obviously, that won't fit every use case, but it fits the majority from what I've seen. So we'll deploy that. So while we're deploying that, we'll have a quick look at a workflow that I created. So here we've got the catalog services. I probably need to re-log in. And under here, I've got just a very simple thing, just to demo, I guess, the speed as well as, just being able to grab that information out. So I can request this snapshot. We can put anything in the description. And hit next. I need a PAS ID, so let's use this AST one. We can see 230, 231, 232, 233 are the nodes, and grab that, and voila, there we go. So it's very simple, very quick, and can be, we can grab the dev one now. Oh, the dev one I don't think's got anything. Let's go UAT. That's got nodes in it. Yep. And there they are. So as we said, a lot of this information that we are storing in here, while this is very infrastructure based, doesn't mean that we can't store application based information in here during the provisioning process. And I will state that a lot of this information that I am playing with here, yes, we could easily pull it out of VRA, we could easily pull it out of the application services API, but these APIs are very heavy. and you can't get back just a small amount of information. You get quite a lot of information back. There's some especially in application services part, you pretty much pull back the entire deployment. In some cases on my client side, which is over 100 pages of JSON with many layers deep. So there's no real simple way to pull out one little bit of information out of that without having quite a large overhead. So this way it's just very fast, very lightweight service, highly available, and is very simple to use with VRO to grab the information that we want back just using a HTTP REST. So we'll have a look at that now. So that particular service is the snapshot one, which I seem to have lost. There it is. So very simple. We'll see the presentation uses just an action. That action is one that I put together, which is this one, and all it really does is return the nodes under this particular structure. So that structure suits me. I've put the clients under this sort of structure as well. That's not saying I could have the whole thing as an input. I've just chosen to just have essentially the PAS ID input, and then because I know that all the machines should be under nodes, it'll return every single one of them. So that's that one. Again, a very simple exercise. But we'll also have a look at another one while this is provisioning, which I hope it is. That's kicking along. So what we have here is another very simple demo of how it can be used. So I had a client that's got quite a large database as a service type offerings, and they find that especially in a big PAS deployment, that the database is generally the one holding up the PAS deployment, or we really need to cut down the time that it took to deploy. So pool of databases is created. On this pool of databases, in this instance, I'm just using a MySQL one that's pushed out by application services as well. It's based on this count, so that count hasn't been refreshed, so there it is. There's 2 in there currently, and say when that gets to 1, it'll go and provision another one and stop at 2, or when it gets to, you could have 20, when it gets to 10, it will start provisioning back up to 20 again. So it keeps quite a large pool ready for all these rapid deployments. So what we'll do here is I've again using an out-of-a-box demo application called Duke's Bank. It's normally got a MySQL database attached to it. So if you see here, this is the standard one that you'd get, and you see it's got a MySQL base. So what I've done here is remove that, replaced it with my own external service, and all that external service is doing is reaching into that pool. I'll just go back. So when these are provisioned, when those MySQL boxes are provisioned, they put in their username, put an IP address, put in the port, or any of the data that you actually need. And this secret server ID would generally be a secret server ID, but I was lazy and I just put the password in there, just again for demo purposes. So now we look at this, and we'll see that we have no SQL server there anymore. But we've got this dbaz queue. So as you can see, you can probably see it's got a bit of Git and a bit of VCO. So I might, while I'm here, showed that we use Git to store all the scripts for version control. And what we have here is Git calls a script that really calls VCO and passes this PAS ID in, and that PAS ID will then pick the first available database out of the queue, and then it will give back our output of IP address, port, and secret, and DB username. As we can see, the Dukes Bank application itself, DB port, DB host, DB user, DB password, all getting from that external service. So what we'll do is we'll deploy one of these things as well. Could have just done a quick deploy, but we'll go through the slow one. Actually, I shouldn't need to. Hopefully that doesn't exist. Alright, so while we wait for that, let's go and see if that NanoTrader has hopefully not failed. Okay, now it's starting the PAS ID service. And secret server and RabbitMQ. So as soon as that PAS ID is done, we should be able to see in the ECTD browser that the new key is in there, new folder structure. Okay, so the PAS ID has been created. We go into here, go to PAS, and there's our prod one we just created. So under there will just be the deployment, which is the load balancer name, which is all the PAS ID is generating, as I mentioned before. That will now tally on through that. While we wait for that to go through, let's go and have a look at that Dukes Bank one. That's a lot smaller. Not done yet. Okay. We'll see the secret server got generated too, so if we go up here, give it the old refresh, and there's our prod one. There's our secret, cool. While we wait, what I will show is that a lot of, which I highly recommend, is that a lot of the deployments that I use, because of being able to version the code and keep track of changes, I do, I guess, the concept of a boilerplate script. So every script we run for Linux boxes is the same. Every script we run on Windows boxes is the same. So if we look at the PasID service and we look at actions, we'll see that we're calling a script out of Git. This allows us to have that same script on every single service. So a lot of the coding happens and scripting happens within GitLab or TFS. We have a number of customers that use both, depending, TFS for Windows and Git for the Linux stuff. But the general Git client will work on both, which is great. So we go back. See how that one's doing. Okay, we can see that 2 of these KVS hosts have done, so we should have some more data in the key value store. So if we go and look under prod, we'll refresh that, and there's our nodes, and there's the 2 VMs that have completed building. And obviously the reverse of all this is when you tear it down, you remove it. Instead of just blatantly removing it, I like to archive the information so we can look back to see, you know, what database belonged to what, to make sure that, you know, we've got a good audit trail. So on deletion, we pull out the JSON file and upload it into Git in a date timestamp. So this way, you know, if for some reason an application deployment fails midway through and we've, for whatever reason, an external service could be down and we can't really resume it, then we have to be able to clean up. So we have to be able to delete these and then try and redeploy again. We've got specific things in there to say if it exists, don't override it. So we sort of need to do it in that way. You could override it if you wanted to, but I think it's safer not to, just in case. So yeah, so that will continue on and that'll populate data. Let's go and look now at hopefully the Duke's Bank one is seeming way through. Okay, that looks good. It's almost finished. Very small one. So as we can see here, the dbas queue is run. And if we check out the properties back from that, we can see we've got the IP address of that, port, there's our secret ID/password, and there's the account, which is root. So if we now go into our CD browser, where we had 2 in the pool, we've now got 1. Our count is now 1 instead of 2. And there's our used. And with our used, it's also put our PasID in there. So we're able to easily link up, clean it up on teardown, etc. So I hope this has been useful, given people some ideas. Any other ideas, please let me know. I'm always keen to work on new things. So hope you enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.